Do you ever want to dive deeper into the Bible, but you just don't know where to begin, or struggle to feel like you even have the time? When you read the Bible, do you get frustrated because you know there's so much more in there? You just have no clue how to get it out? Or maybe you want to know the Bible better, and you're looking for any resource to help. Then this is the podcast for you. Welcome to the Context and Color of the Bible. We're sisters. I'm Veronica.
I'm Erica.
And we love to study the Bible, and we love to help others understand it better. When it comes to our own study of Scripture, we have found that in bringing back the context of Scripture, it adds so much to our understanding. It actually adds color to the black and white pages of the text. It is May 5th.
Oh, my word.
At the time of this being released.
Wow.
Yeah. Mother's Day is on Sunday.
Happy Mother's Day.
For those in America, I don't know that it's national.
It is national. I don't think it's international.
Yes, thanks.
For our listeners outside of the U.S.,
yes.
May you still be blessed.
Yes.
As mothers.
Yes. But with that, we are going to Judges 18. I'm going to say this again because next week in the next couple of episodes, we're going to get into topics you don't want to listen to with children around, at least on the first listen through. You decide.
Yeah, definitely 19.
Yeah. And 21.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but just a heads up, I didn't say it last week, but I want to just keep putting it out there as we're getting to the end of Judges. It ends with a gruesome tale and not always topics that we want to fill our children's heads with at this point when they're younger. So, but today we are jumping into Judges 18. We are getting back to Micah, who is like the Lord and the Levite, which doesn't have a name. I came up with a name for him. I forgot to tell you in the break. I'll tell you later what I think his name could have been.
Okay.
But it's interesting, too, of even that kind of a detail. The Levite didn't have a name when we were first introduced. And I'm foreshadowing to the end of our episode today when he does get a name.
But don't jump there.
Yeah, don't jump there because you won't get it.
Right.
Erica needs to explain it to you.
Right. We'll get there.
Yes. So,
all right. So we ended last week, like you said, with Micah. And Veronica, how would Micah at that moment have described his life?
Probably going well.
Right.
I mean, he's got a shrine. He's got money, apparently. He's got an ephod. He's now got a priest who actually is of the tribe of Levi. So it would feel...
Right. Everything's going my way.
Successful.
Right. If this were a movie... we were reading the story today, modern. I think the narrator would put in like, meanwhile, in another part of not town, but land of Israel.
Erica likes to quote movies we found out last week.
It was a radio show. The scene jumps now to another city in Israel. Poorer city. It's tightly packed, gloomy, but dirty looking. And the camera takes us into the town hall where there's a meeting going on and people are arguing back and forth. There's a lot of yelling. And finally, things begin to calm down and we get to learn what's going on. Now, narratively speaking, this chapter actually links back to Judges 1. And we learned there the Danites were confined to the hills, the tribe of Dan. Instead of being able to settle in the land and spread, the enemy is so strong, they're stuck. And here we learn finally in chapter 18, how did Dan respond, to that situation? And what we are learning as we're listening in on this town hall meeting is they decide to move out of their inheritance that God gave them and claim something else that does not belong to them. Now, you have to realize just because God gave Israel the land and it's still theirs today doesn't mean they have the right to do it at whatever they want. But it is their land. And as we listen in this town hall meeting, we realize no one's even considering asking God what to do. No one's even repenting for their unbelief or being too scared to trust him to take what he gave them. It's all based on what they, in their flesh, think they can do and should do. If you remember in Samson's story, who was of the tribe of Dan, we see one man who's doing what's right in his own eyes. Here we are seeing a tribe do what's right in its own eyes. And eventually we will get to a nation that will do what's right in its own eyes. Eventually, everyone agrees, send out 5 men to search out new land. In my sanctified imagination, as my father likes to put it, I kind of picture someone at the town meeting going, hey, didn't we send out spies the first time? Why don't we do that again? Yeah, let's send out a few men, spy out other lands, see what's available. Heads are nodding. The room is buzzing. There's hope. So they pick 5 men who set out the next morning. They begin their travels north. And who do they meet up with, Veronica?
Well, they come to the house of Micah and lodge there.
This is where our 2 storylines intersect. And we're wondering what's going to happen now. Lo and behold, there's a priest at the house of Micah doing his duty. Maybe he's polishing the metal, feeding the sacrifice or the offering to the idol. Who knows? Either way, the 5 men are invited. Micah gives these men hospitality for the night. And they realize this Levite is there, and they take quite a liking to this young schmoozer of a man. He's an impressive young man, after all. I mean, he's a spiritual leader to this whole household. And so the 5 ask him, hey, what's the connection between you and Micah? And this young Levite's like, yeah, we're not really tight. I mean, he pays me all right and they treat me well, but I'm not, stuck here forever. The commentaries wonder if the Levite's response isn't a bit of a, I'm keeping my options open.
Right.
If you've got something better.
I could be bought.
Right. I could be persuaded. So the next morning, the 5 decide to leave, but they want to hedge their bets. And so they ask the Levite, hey, before we go, we would love to know what a deity thinks, because they use Elohim, the generic name for God that can be used of any God. So you've got a deity right here. Ask him for us. What does he think? Will we have success? I mean, why waste a chance? You have a chance to find out what a God thinks. You take it. But here's the deal. They should already know what the God of Israel thinks. They were given a specific plot of land to take and live there, and they're not even trying to take it. They don't need to ask any God what this other God thinks. They know what their God thinks. Second, there's a tabernacle with legitimate priests somewhere in Israel. Why don't they go there and ask the Lord what he thinks? But no. This is easier. And this young Levite should know better. He should be telling them, go home and take the inheritance the Lord gave you. But he's already ignored what God said, and he may not care at this point anyways. So he gives them an answer. And on the surface, Veronica, it sounds, do you still have it up? You had it.
I did.
Earlier.
Verse 6, and the priest said to them, go in peace. The journey on which you go is under the eye of the Lord. And that was ESV, because I just want to say what NIV said. You didn't like it.
Yeah, because the NIV makes it too positive.
Go in peace. The journey has the Lord's approval.
Okay, in the Hebrew, the ESV is better here, because in the Hebrew, it's a lot more ambiguous. God's eye is on you. Does that mean for good or for bad?
Right.
Now
God's
he says,
watching you.
Yes.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
He does say go in peace, so that hints that it's a good thing. But technically, if things go bad and they come back through, he can say, I didn't say it was
I warned you God was watching you.
Right, yes.
It's a very smart answer of
Yes.
things go well. See, I told you God was watching you. Things go bad. I told you he was watching you.
Exactly. He's leaving himself open either way. But these 5 decide to take it as a good sign, so they continue their travels north. Now, these 5 spies should be reminding us of the 12 spies as they went through those 2 stories. Actually, little points of similarity and dissimilarity should be ringing in our heads. I'm not going to get into any of that, but if you, the reader, are interested, go through and just see how the stories are similar or dissimilar. Now, the 5 men travel the length of Israel. So I would, if this was a movie, give you a travel montage. They'd traveling, wading through rivers and across hills and flatlands, woods, and they go north to the very top, outside a little bit of the boundary. Laish, the city, is north at the foot of Mount Hermon. It is a pleasant climate, well fed by springs, prosperous, productive area. And we follow these 5 men as they come upon a beautiful scene. The sun is shining, birds are singing, children are laughing, they're happy, they're well fed, women are at the well getting water and chatting. It's a peaceful, happy, prosperous city. And these 5 men go through the town, and the people treat them well. They're kind, they're hospitable. And as they're chatting with the men of the city, they learn a couple things, including that the over city, the big city that's over this little city, is far enough away. There's not really a lot of interaction. There's really nobody guarding this city, protecting this city, or governing this city. It's just kind of left on its own. So the people are just happy, healthy. They're isolated.
They had no dealings with anyone.
Yes. So after a few days, these 5 take their leave. They turn around and go home. And once they get back to their home, they rave about the city. It's perfect. We can take it. Now, up to this point, we have to make a distinction because up till now, when Israel has gone to battle, number one, God has told them, go fight. Usually they're the underdogs. And only sometimes does God say kill everyone. It's called a holy war. And it's not every single time Israel goes to war. It is sometimes God, for whatever reason, says specifically about this city or this people group, you wipe them out. Man, woman, child, you take all this stuff and you give it to God. It's all consecrated to him. You burn the city and nobody lives there. That's a holy war. It only happens in specific times and only when God says it. God's not telling this tribe to go anywhere or do anything like this. All right. 600 men and their families agree to go. Now, that would not be the whole tribe of Dan. Some of the tribe of Dan stays in this part of the land. What happens to them, we're not sure. The best guess most scholars have is that they end up intermarrying with other tribes from Israel that's around there. And so they get lost in these other tribes.
Assimilated.
Yes. Excuse me. But these 600 men and their families decide to go up north. Now, as they're retracing the steps of the 5 spies, who do they come upon? What house? What happy situation?
They're back to Micah.
Micah with his shrine and his priest. Now, they should be like Gideon. They should destroy the shrine and the idols. But instead, Veronica, what do?
I think they take it.
They steal it. All of it. And then they turn around and they tell this Levite, hey, you're doing such a good job. You deserve a raise, a reward.
They didn't kidnap him.
No, but they gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. Wouldn't you like to be priest to a whole tribe? I mean, you could remain with one man, or you could come with all of us. And there's 600 of us. Would you say no to 600 men?
No, I would not.
Yeah.
But at least they're paying me. At least they're making it worth my while.
At least that's true.
Because they could have kidnapped him.
That is true. They could have just flat out kidnapped him instead of bribed him.
Right. But now he'll probably give better blessings.
Yeah, that's true. A priest that you kidnap probably doesn't do his job well.
Right.
That's probably a good point. But remember, Micah's paying this Levite. He's giving the Levite room and board. It says this guy has become like a son to Micah. None of that matters. Let me get my coat. I'm out the door. The Levite betrays Micah, and the tribe of Dan has stolen from Micah. And it's not a tiny loss. Remember, this was like the whole 200 pieces of silver. That's a good chunk of money. And who knows what else they took when they took the shrine with them. This is a painful loss for Micah. But we do, with some grim satisfaction, the thief has now become the victim of theft.
You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow. So they take off, continue marching. Micah obviously realizes what happens, takes his neighbors, and they go after the tribe of Dan. And the meeting between the two is insane because you have this big group of men, and Micah and his smaller group come riding up on them, yelling, stop, stop, stop. And the Danites are like, what's up? What is wrong with you, buddy? Like, calm down. And Micah's response is heartbreaking. You took everything from me. You took my gods, my shrine, my priest, my hope, my blessing, my protection from evil. What do you mean what's wrong? You took everything. Micah is horrified. He thought he'd be blessed, but instead he's been cursed. But Micah, if these gods can't even protect themselves from getting stolen, how are they going to protect you? from anything. But Micah's not thinking like that. All he sees was his good luck charm, his boundary around his house that kept his cattle healthy, his grain growing, his family healthy. Like his protection from this evil world is gone. And he's now open to all of this bad stuff again. You've taken everything from me. And the Danites respond with, we didn't take your life.
Oh, veiled threat, maybe?
Yes, it totally is a veiled threat.
Could have been worse.
Could have been worse.
Stop
buddy.
complaining.
Yeah.
Be thankful for what you still have.
Right. So what can Micah say?
Nothing.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's 600 against, who knows how many.
Mm-hmm.
So Micah just goes home and he's done. Maybe, Lord willing, he'll learn his lesson, but who knows at this point. And so, yes, God uses, in some sense, the wicked Danites to bring consequences to the less wicked, but still foolish and wicked Micah. And you can feel bad for Micah a little bit, but not horrible. He's a sad, pathetic figure at this point, as opposed to the next group the Danites will interact with. Those you feel horrible for. So the narrator wants to make sure you remember this is a happy, peaceful, prosperous, isolated city. You get the feeling it's not hurting anyone, like they're just doing their own thing. Remember the birds singing, the light shining, the children laughing, and the tribe of Dan comes along. And the camera angle, I wouldn't have it focus on the city. I would keep it in the woods, focused with the birds singing. But you would begin to hear the screams in the background, and you would see the smoke starting to pour through the woods, and you might even see some blood coming.
And your bright, cheery day would get darker and darker.
And you would hear the sobs. And they are massacring the entire city. Not one person's left alive. And they take this stuff and they burn the city to the ground. This is horrific, horrible, heartbreaking, completely wrong. Now, over time, they rebuild the city, rename it. And there's not one mention of anything being given to the Lord. But we're not surprised. They didn't do this in obedience to God. They did this for themselves. And the narrator finally lets us in on his little secret. He gives us the name of the Levite. This unnamed, wandering, faithless Levite who became a priest for a pagan shrine and now spiritual leader of a tribe that murders innocent people is a descendant of Moses. In fact, could be the grandson of Moses. Most scholars, and when I first learned this book in Israel, that's how it was told to me. This is Moses' grandson. We are, 2 generations away.
Someone Moses knew.
Yes.
Someone who talked to Moses. Someone
saw
who
what God did.
sat at his grandpa's feet and listened to, Grandpa, tell us the story again.
And this is where he is now. I mean, Moses' own family is now part of the problem. And if it's Moses' grandson, then this story actually takes place a lot earlier in the narration of Judges when Israel first enters the land. And what we find out is Moses' descendants continue to serve at the shrine for at least a couple hundred years. And this guy's a Levite, but he's not a priest because he's not of Aaron's family. It's Aaron's sons and grandsons. So he's not even supposed to be a priest. And we find out this shrine.
It was his cousins.
Right. He knew the priests. Yes, it was his cousins or like a type of distant cousin. And this shrine that the Danites stole, this city where they murdered people and set up home, they lived there for a couple hundred years until they're exiled by Assyria. I mean, now we want to go back and reread the whole story starting in 17 and be like, wait a minute, this is Moses' family member? Like, wait a minute, this is when it begins. It begins at the very beginning. They don't even try to take the land. They haven't been in it that long. What in the world? And then the narrator continues with this shock as our minds are reeling. And he lets us know, oh yeah, and by the way, the tabernacle's been at Shiloh this entire time. The tabernacle, what the Lord commanded Moses and Israel to create, where the Lord's presence dwells, where the legitimate priests are. And as the good Bible study students that we are, we take a map out and we look in the hills of Ephraim and we look for the city of Shiloh and we go, oh, they're actually quite close to each other. Micah could have gone to the tabernacle and found out what the Lord wanted. The Danites on their way through Israel could have passed by the tabernacle and found out what the Lord wanted. He was there the entire time and nobody cared. This is horrific. This is just one more step down. And truthfully, Ronnie, when we read the story quickly, everyone sounds religious.
Yes.
And good, because they like to throw around the name of God. But once you slow down and once you go Genesis all the way through, so you know these different things about the Levites and the tabernacle, once you begin to understand the book of Judges, you start to realize this is completely morally bankrupt society. What kind of a son steals from his mom? What kind of a mom leads her son into idolatry? What kind of a Levite serves at an idolatrous shrine and then happily moves on to a bigger idolatrous shrine? What kind of a people plunder their own people on their way to massacre a peaceful city in a region outside their territory God gave them? Like, you can be hearing through the entire portion of this book, Frank Sinatra's song, remember, I Did It My Way? Like, he sang that at the end of his life to celebrate how he did it his way. That is the book of Judges at this point. I did it my way. What's the problem? This is insane. Everything's out of whack, completely topsy-turvy. And sadly, somewhat they succeed. I mean, for a while, Micah has a shrine, and the Danites keep their city and shrine for a couple hundred years. God lets their sin succeed.
Linger.
Up to a point. But now we're wondering, okay, if this is where this Levite is, if this is where the tribe of Dan is, what about the rest of Israel? Like, this is a whole tribe that's gone off the rails. And even the descendants of Moses are being carried away by ego, by idolatry. This is spiritual rock bottom. But that's just the first ending. We have a second ending we're going to hit on next week.
Which will just be fascinating. I mean, we've been hinting at it. We know the story ends gruesome, horribly. And you just go, I mean, just how it spreads from one person to a family, to a tribe, to a nation.
Which you get why God says root out the sin. And I mean, God had capital punishment for some sin.
Right.
And you get it because look at how it spreads.
Right. It's contagious.
Yeah.
It's contagious. But the encouraging thing is, on the other hand, we have stories where one person taking a stand affects and protects the entire nation.
Yes.
And so you have both. I mean, I love that you have, on the one hand, you go, sin is contagious and it can take us all down. But on the other hand, one person standing for what is right
can make all the difference.
Can make the difference in the world. I love that we see both. And our encouragement is to be the one who takes a stand, even if no one else around you is standing, because you don't want to join in on the other side and go down with everybody.
No.
But come back next week. We will be not finishing up next week because we have chapters 20 and 20. 19, 20, and 21 still. So we still have more to go in this story as we cycle and sink even lower.
Amazingly.
I know. It's crazy. But thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.